Hello, everybody, and welcome to Daytona 500. First practice here. Before we get into any major things into the season, I believe we should go through all of the teams and kind of introduce what has been going on in the World Stock Car Series. So let's take a look. We're going to go by manufacturer here. Let's take a look at the Chevy teams first. Chip Ganassi Racing is going to be the factory Chevy team, much to the dismay of Hendrick Motorsports. Chip Ganassi has kind of argued to the Chevy officials that he should be the factory leader team because he thinks he can do a better job than the Hendrick Motorsports Brigade. Hendrick doesn't seem to think that, but the factory team of Drake and the 42 car of Daniel Bouchard are the two drivers that were with the team, I believe, last season. And then you also have a third car this year with Max Anderson, a rookie in the 87 car. Watch these drivers to be a very strong group of teams here, possibly to go forward, keep going forward here. So, Chip Ganassi Racing said to be what we think is going to be the best Chevy team. However, Chevy doesn't seem to have a very big package, and they don't seem to have their stuff organized very well either for team structure and developmental structure. Meanwhile, at Hendrick Motorsports, they're not happy they aren't the factory team anymore. With Nathan Ormond as their rookie leader, Ormond has never really bypassed the entire World Light Series championship. He's coming straight out of late models. So that's a little bit of a reach for somebody like Nathan Ormond on the grid. Like I said, Hendrick isn't exactly the happiest that they aren't the leading team anymore with Chevy. However, they're set to prove them wrong, though, and Chevy has said that they will reevaluate later on. Alex Rowe is another rookie with the team. He raced in World Light Series last year. He's in the 24 car. Good to see him on the grid there. Cody Lamas was the only Chevy to make the final round of the playoffs last year, the final 8 cars in the playoffs last year. Lamas is, of course, a pretty good racing driver in this series. Great to see Cody Lamas still kicking, however. He is not exactly happy, I think, with the Chevy's performance so far this season. And then the 88 of Franco Lopez. Lopez is a steadfast in the 88. Watch out for him to be a stronger contender this year if Chevy can get their act together. Next up, we have the Richard Childress team. Richard Childress has been under a little bit of controversy with their relationship with the Monaco family. Of course, Eric Monaco has been one of the best drivers for them. Hasn't done a ton in this series, except winning the Daytona 500 last year under controversial circumstances after he dumped Kenny Myatt for the victory. Another big thing is we're going to actually go to Connor Monaco first. Connor Monaco in the 31, another RCR car. Connor Monaco even has less credentials than Eric does. He raced last year a bit, but hasn't really performed all that well for the team. And then, of course, they also are under controversy because they also have one of the Logans on the team as well, with Matthew Logan, a rookie this season. So, no matter what, somehow every driver on their team has some sort of family connection, which has been a bit controversial for the Childress Brigade because a lot of people see them as hiring people that are somehow related to them. Obviously, the other Logan brother, Andrew, is in the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, which we'll get to them later. They have their whole band of controversy to get to once we get to the Toyotas. But there were talks that he might end up in a 4th RCR car this year. So there's a lot of concerns about, are these drivers really worthy of the top-tier rides they're getting? They are the 3rd Chevy team, but arguably they can be interchangeable. Any of those top 3 Chevy teams can be interchangeable, really. The 4th team is a pretty good steadfast team of Cicerelli Bracketed and Jacob Hart. This is JTG Doherty Racing here. They have struggled for speed in preseason testing this year, so watch out for JTG Doherty to possibly struggle a little bit with that team. Jason Tucker in the 13 for Germain Racing has, been there. Not the fastest car, not the slowest car on the grid, but good job for Germain, if you ask me. They also have another car on the grid as well. I believe it is the 30... They have another GMS car, and I don't exactly know which number it is, actually. But this is their second team. However, it's been way off the pace. I think it's LaRousse, actually. Yes, I believe that is LaRousse is the other Germain car. Yes, it is. So watch LaRousse and Jason Tucker to possibly do something, but don't expect much from him. Getting a top 25 in points would be a miracle for that team. Aiden Shepard is a pretty big steadfast driver in this series, but he's all the way fallen down to Circle Sport when all of his rides backed out. He was, of course, a Hendrick driver last year, and didn't really get a whole lot of luck there, as Shepard kind of underperformed in that car. Now he's driving for Circle Sport, so again, another team that really needs to perform well. And finally, Derrick Henry, the last of the Chevy cars here, is driving for the Richard Petty Motorsports car, who has been drastically off the pace that team has been. I wouldn't expect much from them this year if preseason testing means anything. They are going to struggle, I believe. Now, we move on to the Ford camp. The Ford camp is kind of a little bit more of a mixed bag. They're not willing to admit who the lead team is. However, it's basically a mix somewhere between Penske, Stewart-Haas Racing, and Roush Racing somewhere in there. However, Roush Racing really hasn't done all that much recently anyway. Ford still says they're getting factory support. However, and they're not a customer team, but they don't seem to do much with it. But those three teams are right now really fighting for that top team position here. And let's take a look and see what each team currently has going for them. Penske has probably the most seasoned roster of anybody. They have Samet Ozkin in the 2, Jesse Turner in the 12, and Darren Blake in the 22. All drivers that have been in many different series before, and have a lot of different, well-versed in a lot of different series. Ozkin, of course, is a driver who has a little bit of success in some series in the past, so watch out for Ozkin to be a big factor here, especially with lead Ford support there. Jesse Turner, again, another driver who has had a lot of support in other series here, and in this series as well. Turner has done a pretty good job in the past, and on the 22 car, you have Darren Blake, who's a little bit more of an obscure person on this grid. However, Darren Blake has had a lot of success in other series, so watch out for Darren Blake to possibly be a championship contender. The Penske cars have been looking fast during all of Speed Weeks. The story about Stewart-Haas Racing has been the fact that they've overexpanded way too quickly. They're up to 4 cars, and now they don't really have their pay driver that they normally have set up here. Stewart-Haas is normally used to being able to pay off their bills with a pay driver. Well, they don't have that right now, as Zachary Fitzwater has been their lead driver the last couple of years. Fitzwater is a very, very strong driver in this series, as you know. And watch out for Fitzwater to be a championship contender. He actually made the last round of the playoffs last year. Vince Freeze in the 14 car in the same pack, ironically, in this practice session here. Another driver who can make a championship run here. However, he's kind of slowly faded away a little bit in the last couple of seasons. So maybe some World Stock Car Series luck could go his way, and maybe he can pick up a win or two this season. I don't know, really. Watch out for Freeze, though. The next car is, I am missing one, I believe, for that team. The 4, 14, 41 is one. And I'll get back to the other one in a second here. Chase Dunbar is actually the fastest right now of the Stewart-Haas team. Great to see Dunbar performing very well here this weekend in Speed Weeks. But watch out for Dunbar to possibly score win or two in other places. So watch Dunbar be a very strong champion going forward, or a very strong threat for the championship here. And who am I missing? Oh, Colin Gallagher. This is Kenny Myatt, the legendary Kenny Myatt's younger cousin here. He was part of this Joe Gibbs Racing driver developmental program that we're going to get into in a little bit. And well, Gallagher kind of got messed over by it, and on the advice of his cousin, decided to leave the Toyota development program. And it was a good move because Stewart-Haas picked him up for a 5th car. He, of course, was the runner-up in the World Light Series last season. And who is the last driver? The 10 car, I'm sorry, Sean Ard. Forgot about Sean Ard here. Ard has been a little bit slower than the rest of his teammates, but he's definitely quieter and still can definitely pull off some good wins. So Sean Ard is a driver that we need to watch possibly to score a win or two and make a run at the championship. I think all the Stewart-Haas cars have a shot at it, really. Maybe Gallagher not as much because he's a rookie, but watch out just for a possibility there. Jack Roush's team has struggled recently. I think it's because of Jack Roush's quite old-fashioned ownership methods, where he is not the... reports are he's not the easiest to get along with, but maybe sometimes some old is what people need. Like Ryan Haupt, longtime veteran of the series, is now in the 6 car. Watch out. Ryan Haupt is often said as one of the toughest guys to pass out there. Watch out for Haupt to possibly make maybe a career rejuvenation effort with a team that needs some rejuvenation as well. Either that or it'll all blow up in their faces. Next car on the grid is the Napier car. And Napier is a rookie, as far as we know. Don't know much about him. Maybe he'll make a championship run. He's running pretty good in this session here. During speed weeks, he has been known to be rather aggressive. And the third car on the grid is one of 3 Australians on the grid with Zayden Davidson in the Roush Racing 99 car. Good to see the 99 back on the grid for World Stock or the World Stock Car Series. And Zayden Davidson is known to be aggressive in other series. Watch out for Davidson going forward. Davidson has worked for a number of teams in the past, but has still never won his first race, but he's hoping that with Roush Racing's possible rejuvenation, I think that's how it's said, possibly coming forward, that Davidson could be a championship contender, or possibly win a couple races. His main goal this season, I think, is to win races with Roush. So that's Roush Racing. Let's take a look at some of the lesser-known Ford teams. There's only 3 more of them, really. The Wood Brothers team is buying all their stuff from Penske, so they are getting a generation-old car, so they could be good with Tanaka Shimamura in her third season on the going into her third season of World Stock Car Racing Championship competition. Shimamura is the only female on the grid as well. Watch out for Tanaka Shimamura to do really well on the road courses. However, oval speed hasn't been there, which is kind of strange because the Wood Brothers car tends to do well on the ovals and not the road courses. Shimamura could be a very interesting candidate to look forward to. However, I would not expect wins out of her unless if it comes out of a road course here. It's going to be hard for the Shimamura team to win. It did get a couple seconds last year. Got as high as second last year. I believe... What track was that? Sonoma, maybe? I want to say. Or it might have been Cleveland-Burke Lakefront Airport. But did get a second, I believe, at Cleveland. Did get a second at Cleveland-Burke Lakefront. I apologize. So Shimamura does have the speed to win on a road course, but... going forward, it's going to be hard for Shimamura to make a big championship run unless if she can get that maiden win. Go Fast Racing has some big aspirations this season to get their way further up the grid, bringing back Leanne Campana, who previously raced in World Stock Car Series, but then left for Europe for a bit and came back. Campana's never won a race in the series, but expect that 32 car to possibly do a bit better here. Ford's got a really nice package here. However, right now on the speed charts, they haven't done anything. They're 41st on the speed charts. Campana possibly could be a factor for some top 10s and everything like that, but overall, they're not going to do anything above, like, 30th in points, really. They're Go Fast Racing, and Go Fast Racing hasn't ever really done much in the series, unless if they're true about their new rise to speed. I don't see it happening, to be honest with you. Even if they do have a driver of the likes of Leanne Campana in their car. Casey Nanico was a big star in qualifying for the Daytona 500 last year with a very underfunded car. And now he's driving for Front Row Racing, or Front Row Motorsports, I'm sorry. And, yeah, team's okay. Doesn't look that bad. Frodomar Otz is also the driver of the 38 car. Not much is known about him either. He's just kind of there, honestly. He's raced before in the series a couple of times. Hasn't done much, though. Midfield team, to be honest with you. The last group of teams we need to look at are the Toyotas, and boy are the Toyotas an interesting bunch, with a lot of drama. The Chevys and the Fords, believe it or not, don't have that much drama going for them. However, the Toyota teams, they've got all kinds of dramas, simply because I think of the way that Toyota tends to do their business. Toyota takes a very Formula One-like European-esque approach to the way that they run their World Stock Car Series Championship teams. They have a set lead team being Joe Gibbs Racing. They have a driver development program that's essentially controlled by Joe Gibbs. And, well, they like to see results because they probably have the strongest package out of everybody this season. And that's kind of ruffled some feathers, actually, within the Toyota camp itself. Like I said, they have a copious amount of young driver developmental program, or drivers in their developmental program. So we're going to take a look and see what it's like for them going forward here. We're going to start with the Joe Gibbs Racing team. Anthony Logan drives the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. Now the big thing with Joe Gibbs this season is the drama surrounding Kenny Myatt. Kenny Myatt, of course, made the first round of the playoffs last year, but got eliminated after some controversial circumstances, and nearly won the Daytona 500 last year. Yet Joe Gibbs fires him because they have driver development programs, ironically with the driver in the 20 car, which was Myatt's old car. Logan tends to be the quietest of the JGR brigade, and was probably the least performing of the team last season, as he was clearly the fourth best driver in the team, which kind of surprises you because the driver that ended up getting fired wasn't Kenny Myatt, or was Kenny Myatt, not Anthony Logan. However, Logan could do better this year, I think. It was his rookie year last year, and I could expect Anthony Logan to do a little bit better going forward. Noah Hart is an absolute legend in the World Stock Car Series. He's won 3 of the 6 championships so far, and still no Daytona 500 for him, though, and has made the last round of the playoffs every year that they've done it. However, despite all of this, Noah Hart could possibly be leaving that team this year simply because there's so many drivers in the program, in the Toyota developmental program. Joe Gibbs Racing said Joe Gibbs, apparently the owner, said if any of their drivers do not make the final round of the playoffs, they could end up getting cut. And Joe Gibbs is one that tends to do that kind of stuff. Ooh, a little bit of contact there between the 48 and 47 cars up there. Joe Gibbs tends to use these tactics to extort the best performance out of his drivers. However, it's ruffled some feathers, to say the least. Noah Hart is on the hot seat, to be honest with you, even though he is the winningest driver in the entire series. The number 19 car is, of course, DJ Curtis. DJ Curtis is the reigning champion of the series. DJ Curtis is a driver to watch going forward. He's won a Daytona 500 before. He won the second and third Daytona 500s out of the 6 we've run. And that's going to make things interesting for someone like DJ Curtis, especially considering that if he doesn't make the final round of the chase, he could end up getting cut. The most controversial of the Joe Gibbs cars, though, is, wrong car there, it's Kitsune Hashimoto. Hashimoto is an endurance racer, which you need a bit of endurance to race in the World Stock Car Series. There's a couple of 3 longer races. You've got the Southern 300, Brickyard 400, and obviously the Daytona 500. Hashimoto has no stock car experience, though, and was bumped up above everybody else in the driver developmental program because Hashimoto won the WEC last season. And then Kenny Myatt, who is arguably the second most winningest driver, was fired because they needed to bump up Hashimoto. This really angered Kenny Myatt because, and we'll get to him in a minute when we go down to the Levine family racing team, but Hashimoto has been bumped up very quickly and could possibly fall flat on his face if they're not careful. We don't know if this is a Toyota move or a Joe Gibbs move. However, with more drivers waiting in the wings, it's expected that the other 3 drivers on the team are the ones that are going to get fired if none of them perform well. Hashimoto, because Hashimoto's a rookie, that's not going to apply to him. So, Hashimoto, unless if he falls completely flat on his face, is probably going to be safe next year. But the other drivers don't have that luxury, even though they are proven drivers in the series. It's a real tough situation here with Joe Gibbs Racing, and it gets even tougher when we go down to Leavine Family Racing. Leavine Family Racing historically has been a backmarker team with just their Fashion 95 car. They finished 37th in points last year. However, the big thing here was Kenny Myatt, who's driving for them. Kenny Myatt was told that he should retire by Joe Gibbs, the owner of Joe Gibbs Racing, obviously. Myatt didn't want to retire, but he was then also told that he wasn't going to have a ride next year because Hashimoto was coming up to take his ride. So Kenny Myatt starts looking elsewhere and nearly gets a Stewart-Haas car, specifically the number 14. Vince Friese was said to be on the way out. However, Toyota didn't want to lose him. However, and since that, Toyota says, well, why don't you go race for Leavine Family Racing, which is basically the only major team that you've got other than Joe Gibbs. Myatt didn't want to go there. So what Toyota did against Joe Gibbs' wishes is decide to make Leavine Family Racing the R&D team above Joe Gibbs Racing. So Leavine Family Racing gets all the experimental stuff that might end up blowing up in their face, but could end up being faster than Joe Gibbs' team. That makes Joe Gibbs not very happy. But this was mainly to keep Kenny Myatt in the Toyota stable and not have him go to Ford or Chevy, because they were afraid of that. They actually added a second car to Leavine Family Racing because of it with Jack Halleck in the 36 car. Jack Halleck was supposed to be the next driver in line at Joe Gibbs Racing. He is, of course, the reigning World Light Series champion. 2 years in a row, for that matter. And now, the Jack Halleck car was bumped. Jack Halleck was quite upset that he was bumped, or that Hashimoto was bumped over him despite being the leader of the young driver program for Toyota. So he bolts from the program just like Colin Gallagher did and ends up going to Leavine Family Racing because Toyota didn't want to lose him. They thought Gallagher was expendable. They couldn't keep everybody, to be honest with you, although they have made interest that they want Gallagher back. The 36 car, on the other hand, is Halleck now is with Leavine Family Racing with the experimental team. Nobody knows if these cars are going to blow up or not 5 laps into the race, but they're going to be quick. And Joe Gibbs Racing does not like them, and neither of these two drivers are very happy with Joe Gibbs Racing. There's going to be a massive Toyota rivalry there. Red Bull Racing is the third team in Toyota's pecking order, with Daniel Voiles. There was a possibility that this team was going to merge with Leavine Family Racing to make it a 3-car team, and that still might happen throughout the year. Voiles has had a rocky history in racing series in the past. Quite the controversial character. Not a lot of drivers seem to like him very much, but he has been turning his reputation around. And watch him to be possibly a midfield driver. He's actually 5th on the time charts, which is a pretty good thing for him. Great to see him on the grid. The Martin McClure Racing Team is actually qualifying pretty well with Quentin Moore here. Or not qualifying, testing pretty well here with Quentin Moore. Moore and the Martin McClure team, they're a new team this year. Not much is known about them. Just expect them to perform, I guess. They are going to be interesting to watch this season. I think probably 35th in the standings is a realistic expectation for them. And finally, by a mile, the worst team so far this season has been the Obaika Racing Team with Alex Tanker. Unfortunately for them, Tanker despite having a bit of history in the series before, Obaika is basically... I don't even think Toyota knows that they're there. Kind of like the Martin McClure team. Toyota doesn't really seem to care about anybody other than their top two teams. Even Red Bull kind of gets a little bit of a raw deal on that. But Obaika definitely does, because they are definitely lowest on the pecking order. If they make the whole season, that'll be a shock. Not finishing last in points for Alex Tanker is a reasonable goal, actually. And I hate to say that sarcastically, but that's the way it's going to work, I think, for him. So with that being said, that is your grid for the World Stock Car Series for Season 1. Things may change as the season goes on. Remember, winning a race guarantees you a playoff spot. Once you are... Yeah, winning a race guarantees you a playoff spot. So, keep an eye on things going forward. Might be surprising. Who do you think is going to win the championship? Who do you think will be the villains of the series? Who do you think will be the heroes of the series? Put your predictions below. And we'll see you for the Daytona 500.